Hey, it's Juan. I'm going to do a video discussing my ancestors, the Guachichiles. So right here in front of me, I have some artwork from this gentleman named Daniel Parada. Username's Kushketan. Definitely follow him on Instagram. He has really good depictions of just indigenous peoples in general. But he has one of the Guachichil leader right here, and he gets this. He cites a source. It's from the Florentines' depiction of a Chichimeca in his codex. So really fascinating stuff. The war paint is absolutely beautiful. Everything. One day, I think I would love to try to copy that pattern on my body. But I was thinking about possibly trying to replicate the war paint in the form of a facial mask. It's COVID and all that, but I think that it would be a really neat idea, really good way to rep my Guachichil roots. So I'm probably going to do that here soon. I'm going to get into something interesting that I found. For a lot of you that are Guachichils, you have that ancestry, right? I'm going to explain how much evidence I have for my claim to be Guachichil, and a neat find, which is a list of Guachichil names from a book by a Spanish friar. I'm going to open it up here. It's called Guachichiles and Franciscanos. So the friars and Guachichils. And it's quite long. I'm going to read all of it, but it's 338 pages and it's in Spanish. I can read Spanish. I can understand it. I can read Spanish cursive. But my Spanish is not as advanced as my English. That's something I'm trying to remedy. Anyhow, the important thing with this is that it really spoke to me. I found this on YouTube. Like somebody did a video trying to pronounce some of the Guachichil names, trying to make it sound like authentic, maybe. What language would it sound like? Because the language has been lost largely. We have some words, we have some names. And a reason why I'm doing this video, a major reason, is because I've adopted one of these names because I am a Guachichil. I have so much evidence and backing that I will demonstrate. But I felt that I should preserve the names and honor my ancestors, and a good way of doing that was going to be by adopting one of these names. So anyways, I'll show you guys here where it is at. It's going to be on page 155. This is where you can find quite a bit of these names. So this right here, it says, Guachichil names registered by the friar Juan Garcia in a book called the Book of Charcas from 1648 to 1659. These are masculine names right here. There's a whole list. There's quite a bit of them. There's a bunch of feminine names as well. So for you women that are Guachichil, by all means, so the thing that's cool, and this really spoke to me, was the name Juancholoa. My name is Juan already, and my family has called me Juancho a lot. It's already a nickname. So when I saw Juancholoa, I'm just like, that right there fits. Like, I don't know. So something tells me it wasn't just coincidence, that it was also kind of, I don't know, it sounds probably silly, but maybe meant to be or something. But I absolutely love it. So henceforth, I will call myself Juancholoa as far as my indigenous name. So beautiful name too. Really like the cadence, like the way it's smooth. I like all of it. So I'm going to go to my statement of proof for claiming the Guachichil tribe, right? And it is right here. So Guachichil tribal claim summary, right? I'll read it off to you guys. Okay. So I have 23 indigenous ancestors I found in Guachichil territory, right? They come from Mazapil in Zacatecas, Armadillo de Los Infantes in San Luis Potosi, Mexquitic de Carmona in San Luis Potosi, Bocas, San Luis Potosi, and Venaditos, San Luis Potosi. Primarily, Armadillo de Los Infantes and Mexquitic de Carmona are known to have been smaller towns that are pertaining almost exclusively to Guachichils. And I'm going to go to the sources where I discovered this, because I was on a crazy genealogy research binge last night. I was up until like 3 a.m. trying to look at all this, because another thing is, when I found the name, I'm like, let me go back and verify all my sources. Like I get a little like OCD with that shit. So, but anyways, let's continue on. I have 2 ancestors out of my records that are clearly stated to be from Armadillo de los Infantes. That's going to be Josef Esteban of 1751, and he was an indio, and Maria de la Concepcion in 1741, she was in India. It should be mentioned that the vast bulk of my ancestors were baptized and married in Armadillo de los Infantes. They lived nearby in a place called Venaditos. Now, thankfully, because I did some asking around on a group called Mexican Genealogy, I highly recommend that you join that if you have not, if you have Mexican ancestry. Somebody gave me a really good source, which is called the Diccionario Geografico de Garcia Cubas. It's going to be volumes 4 through 5. You can actually find this on Family Search. So just Google this and it'll pop up. And he talks about municipalities. But Venaditos, like, that's what it was called back then. Now it's known as Villa de Hidalgo in San Luis Potosi. It's in the municipality of Iturbide. Venaditos was also known almost exclusively as Guachichil territory, because these three places that I'm talking about, which is Venaditos, Mexquitic de Carmona, Armadillo de Los Infantes, they have pretty small populations. Again, another really strong point in the evidence chain that the fact that my ancestors came from there, they were already small populations, they were almost already exclusive to Guachichil. You can connect the dots. So my strongest evidence for my tribal claim is due to Rafaela de Los Angeles, which is my 7th grade aunt. She has a baptismal record in 1720. So right there, it lists her and my 7th grade grandparents, Leonardo Salinas and Maria Josefa, as natives of the village of Mexquitic de Carmona. So you see, in this particular book, the priest would actually differentiate the natives based off location and origin. And he was very specific that my ancestors here were from that village. And again, Mexquitic de Carmona was known as almost exclusively as a Guachichil village. And that's really, really important. So this record popped off like as an index record that was related to another 7th grade aunt of mine, Antonia de Santiago, which she was married in 1746. And that also, you know, I got to Antonia from my 6th grade grandparents' marriage of 1758. You know, all this took place in Armadillo de los Infantes. Rafaela and my 7th grade grandparents were from Mexquitic de Carmona, so they likely just like either they were always there or they just kind of moved around following that period of time. And the trippy thing is this last part, right? So in the book that I'm talking about that I already showed you guys, it talks, and I'm going to show you the page, it talks about a group of Guachichils called of the Salinas from a specific area, is known as Salinas de Hidalgo in San Luis Potosi nowadays. The significance with this is, if you haven't already caught on, is a lot of my ancestors that were natives had the last name Salinas, which you can call it a coincidence, but I think that's pretty good evidence. I'm just going to say. So with all that said, I claim the name Juancholoa as mine, as my Guachichil name, due to this bulk of the sources. And this PDF, by the way, this is my Native American lineage proof PDF. It's 69 pages long. I detail how I get to every single native ancestor on there, which I might give you a glance of that later. But for now, I wanted to present the places that we're going to go here. So I'll show you first the Salinas thing that I was talking about, right? Right here on this page 253. The second group of Guachichiles basically were called from the Salinas. Down here at the bottom, it says, the place that they're talking about, the Salinas, is Salinas del Piñón Blanco, which is today Salinas de Hidalgo, like what I was saying. It's in the footnotes. So again, really neat. I don't think it's a coincidence that my ancestors' last names were Salinas, especially if they were Guachichil. They're indios in Guachichil territory. And I think that lends really good evidence. Moving on, we're going to go to, this one is about Armadillo de los Infantes. And I'm going to post the sources for a lot of these places. They were easy to find in Spanish. Like if you just typed in Historia de Armadillo de los Infantes, and then put like Chichimeca or Guachichil right after that, they would pop up. A lot of these are in Spanish. If I didn't know Spanish, I would be screwed. But anyways, this is for Armadillo de Los Infantes. Now, this is what it says, believe it or not. And I will tell you, at first I couldn't believe my eyes. I was like, no. There's no way. Like, they're lying. But they're not lying. I'll show you why. So it says, up until before 1990, this region in particular, Armadillo de los Infantes, was populated pretty much only by Chichimeca Indians belonging particularly to the Guachichil ethnic group. After this, that's when you would start seeing, mixing with mestizos and all that other shit. But it was pretty much only Guachichil people is what it's stating. And you might ask, well, why is that? Why is that? The reason for that is I scrolled further down and I started looking at the number of inhabitants in Armadillo de los Infantes. And the thing about it is that it's always had a really low population, like, for example, and it's decreased over time. But in 1950, there's only 8,000 people, and it's decreased that was a high point. It's decreased ever since then. It's always been a pretty small little village. So, and I have two answers that outright are stated to have been from here. And again, this is from the source stated as a primarily Guachichil type of village up until 1990. But even if it wasn't until 1990, again, based off the population size and it being known as like Guachichil territory is still pretty good evidence. We'll go to Villa Hidalgo. Now, I mentioned most of my ancestors come from Venaditos, right? Well, it's not called Venaditos anymore. It's called Villa Hidalgo. It's in the municipality of Iturbide. Again, I'm probably butchering that. I don't know how the hell to pronounce it. Okay, so this is what it says. It says that this territory was inhabited by Guachichiles primarily and historically. And, the Spaniards were invading San Luis Potosi and, the war happened. But following the war, the Chichimeca War, where the Spanish were defeated, they paid the Guachichiles off, right, to be peaceful, to become Christian, right, Catholic. So, but it's saying here, which is really interesting, that even up until the 17th century, there was really not that many Spanish colonization or contact in this specific little town or area. So it lets you know that a lot of the Guachichil blood and all that would still be there because the population wasn't really mixing that much here in this region. That's what I think is extremely interesting. And again, a lot of my records are even from the 1700s or, very early 1800s. So again, very strong evidence. One other thing I'd like to point out, whenever you're doing something like this, you've got to keep in mind, you want to find very strong evidence. And in some cases, you can find a tribe actually listed on a Spanish document, like a baptism or marriage. But more often than not, you will not find that because the Spanish just called them indios. So this is where a lot of, you need a sheer amount of evidence, I would say, to really make a good claim, a really solid claim. And research into the places like these. Again, this is just a second place that I'm talking about here. So if we go to Bocas, San Luis Potosi, well, I had plenty of ancestors from Bocas, San Luis Potosi. So this is what it has to say. When the Spanish started really going into Bocas around 1570, they found nothing but Guachichiles. Nothing but Guachichiles. Obviously, this was during the time period when the war was happening from 1550 to 1590. The Guachichiles are described as being very merciless to the colonizers, and they're said to be the most violent and the most fierce of all the Chichimecas in general, which I take great pride in. They really kick Spanish ass, so fuck yeah. But again, Bocas, I have quite a bit of ancestors from here. And don't get me wrong, I'm aware that there was the I'm gonna butcher the name, but Tlaxcalans, the people that betrayed the Mexica. I'm aware that they were brought up north to pacify the Guachichiles. I'm aware of that. However, you also got to understand that they mixed doesn't take away the fact that these people were Guachichil, even if they mixed, because they would still have that ancestry further down. Mazapil, I have plenty of ancestors from Mazapil as well that are Indios. So here's what it has to say. The primitive name Mazapili, it's from Nawa origins. And let's see, Matzal Venado y Pili o Pili Pequeño. That name was put on it by the Guachichiles, right? Which were a branch of the Chichimecas. When the Spanish first arrived, they described that this place was inhabited by a bunch of warriors, like 6,000 warriors, semi-nomadic or nomadic. And they were Chichimecas. And the Guachichiles, of course, named this place as well. They had a hand in what it was called. So again, it's Guachichil territory. And you could always reference a good website that I know called nativeland.ca. And it's really accurate. It's fairly accurate. So if you type in like any city you're living in, it'll pop up with what ancestral lands, what native tribe that land belonged to. Which when all these places that I'm talking about here, I found these sources stating the history that talks about how they were Guachichil territory, but it's also in the nativeland.ca map as well. So that's even more proof there. Mexquitic de Carmona, right? This is the village that I was talking about that is my strongest proof. Well, Mexquitic de Carmona is known to have been primarily a Guachichil territory. In this article, this gentleman, they're talking about how they're proud of having their Guachichil blood. And this is from an article in 2015. So again, I'm far from the only person that knows this or that realizes that there has strong connections. Here are some people like talking about this, right? Here it's stating that this was inhabited by the Guachichil tribe, basically exclusively. And of course, once the colonizers came, yes, there was mixing. Yes, there's sometimes displacement. Sometimes there was just forced assimilation, or maybe not so much forced in the beginning because the Guachichils just took a shit ton of payment to stop fighting. But either way, the current population here, the residents here are saying in this article that they are proud to be Guachichil, that they know that the blood is running through their veins. And again, this village is pretty small as well. So it just lets you know. And I believe historically it's been pretty small as well too. So again, very strong evidence for that Guachichil tribal connection and claim. Mexquitic de Carmona. This is kind of like a second document or historical site that I found talking about this village. Doesn't list the Guachichil specifically, but it is saying that it was inhabited by nomadic Chichimecas primarily when the Spaniards first arrived here about 1583 in Mexquitic de Carmona, right? And they set up churches and all that jazz. But again, it is Guachichil territory. We look at the other source, the Native Land CA app as well, and in this one again. Up here in the north in San Luis Potosi, it was almost exclusively Guachichil territory. There are some for like the Pami, I believe that's how you pronounce it. I'm not sure. I might have butchered that. But the vast bulk of the land was Guachichil territory. And again, these people were, they were paid to be peaceful after defeating the Spanish handily. They cost the Spanish a lot of resources and men. They were not exterminated or any of that. They were peacefully assimilated or, paid to assimilate. So again, even with an infusion of Tlaxcalans or other groups doesn't negate the fact that a lot of these people have Guachichil blood, and like I do. And I was surprised because, see, when I first started doing genealogy, I figured that because I was born in Monclova, Coahuila, that all my ancestors would be from there. But I found that most of my ancestors come from Guachichil territories, like Mazapil, Zacatecas, like most of them come from freaking San Luis Potosi. So I also find that extremely interesting. So I'm definitely proud to have that Guachichil blood flowing through my veins. And I encourage anybody, honestly, one thing is to know if you're racially Native American, okay? And a lot of, Hispanics, Latinos, that's what they are. But I encourage you, put in the work to really try to find your tribe, try to establish that connection. It's going to take hundreds of hours. It's going to take a lot of time and effort, but it is so worth it, because once you know that, you have all the evidence laid out, it feels good and it feels right. And I am happy with how far I have gotten with all this evidence. And I'm glad that I claimed Juancholoa as my Guachichil name. And as promised, I said I would probably go into it some, which I suppose I will. So this is the beginning of the PDF. I'm not going to show you guys everything, because some of that shit has like a birth certificate and all that nonsense. And the closer, when you start off your tree, that's when it has like the recent or present day familial connection. So for their privacy, I'm just going to skip over that part. But I did multiple DNA tests. As you can see, average, I'm like 51%, but if we're just going by Ancestry DNA, which I believe is the most accurate test out there, I'm straight up 50%. So pretty cool shit. All right, so this is the lineage to my first ancestor, recent one, so that's why I'm not going to show you how I got there specifically. Just know I use my own birth certificate and all that, blah, blah, blah. So this is my second great-grandfather, Conrado Salcedo, So in my second great aunt's birth certificate of 1921, Conrado is listed as being of an indigenous Mexican race. It's right there, de raza indígena mexicana. If you plug this into the Native Land CA app, it says this is Coahuiltecan territory. I haven't been able to get as far back on my mother's side of the family, so I'm not sure if maybe if I was able to get further back, he might be from San Luis Potosi or around those regions, or maybe he is Coahuiltecan, just straight from Coahuila, like forever, that branch. But I need to get further back again. Even though I've done all this research, I am far from finished. Like there's so much more I need to get to. But anyway, that's my first ancestor. Okay, so I'll show you guys from here on pretty much with when it doesn't involve like talking about present day family members, how I got there. So this is I forgot to list what number grandfather, but anyways, it's a grandparent from 1857 to 1913. So all I did was there are several ways to make connections. So if I had his baptismal record, that would give me his parents' names. If I had his marriage record, that would give me his parents' names. So I had his death certificate, gives me his parents' names. The baptismal record sometimes, and depending on the region, will give you the grandparents' names, which, oh my God, it's like a cheat code right there when you get that shit. So you can get really far back. And I will go into depth about what exactly I do, but that's in another video. I'm going to call that, it's going to come soon, but that's going to be how I found 25 Native American ancestors in 5 months, Genealogy Fundamentals by yours truly. But anyways, I'll show you guys. So these are, I believe these are my 6th great grandparents. I should have written down what number, but I just know these are all my ancestors because again, I got there and I show it sequentially. But Gaspar Padron, as you can see, Indio, Maria Marcela Cabrales, India. And here in the second page, I have it. Oh, this is a marriage record for them in 1806. This is the Mazapil ancestors I was talking about right here. And let's see, let's keep going. This is for Maria Fastima Cabrales, India. This is in Mazapil, Zacatecas, Guachichil territory, like we covered as well. All right, so this is my 4th great grandfather, I believe, from the Zapata side. He is an indio from the Valley of Dolores. I have asked around the Mexican genealogy group, asked around in general. I have no idea where this Valley of Dolores is. It has to be near this Ciudad del Maíz because that's where he had this baptism at. And this would be Pami territory. But I haven't been able to get further back. That's the problem. So I don't know if they've always been there and they are Pami, or if they're not. But here's what I'm going to say about this. If I did find out that they were Pami, I wouldn't claim Pami as my tribe because they still exist. So here's what I have to say about claiming tribes. If the tribe still exists and you see that you have a connection to it, you would need to go to that tribe and ask for admittance in a humble way. And if they said no, don't throw a fit. It is what it is. I would support them monetarily and in any way I could, just to show that I honor them, right? That I have respect for them because they are my tribe in the sense by connection of blood. But if you are not a member of an existing tribe, I would never try to claim that. Just say you're Native American. And if people ask, you could say, well, I'm a descendant from that tribe, but I'm not of that tribe. Two very important things. The tribe's dead or just doesn't exist anymore, like the Guachichil, then if you have strong evidence like I do, I believe you can claim that because that resurrects it, that brings it back. And I'm probably going to stop saying the Guachichil tribe is dead because it really is not. I'm still alive. And there are plenty of other Guachichiles that have made their connection or that live in Mexico. Like again, in that article, the villagers, they know that they're Guachichil, right? So there's no formal tribe, but we're not dead. We're still here, you know, and hopefully my video and others will help people make these connections, especially when I make that genealogy fundamentals one. But anyways, he was from that territory. So there's 2 ancestors out of 25 that do not come from Guachichil territory. This would be him, Jose Teodosio Zapata, and the Corrado Salcedo, right? They would be from Pami or Coahuiltec, and if we're just going to go off based off their record, but I'd want to work further back to be able to make a good claim, right? Although I'm pretty far back with Teodosio Zapata because this is in 1802, so yeah. But I'd like to get more ancestors from that area, or you know, go further back with his parents, but I haven't been able to. I'll have to work on that. All right, this is where we start with the Salinas Native Americans. This is where you're going to see a whole lot of natives. So this is a grandmother of mine, okay? So Tomasa Salinas, 1835. This was in Armadillo de los Infantes again. So it says, Infanta India que nació en Venaditos. So an Indian infant that was born in Venaditos, and we've been over Venaditos, primarily Guachichil territory, right? She's a legitimate daughter of Jose Antonio Salinas and Rufina Osornio. So we go further down. She has a brother named Jose Blas, okay? So it says that he's an infante indio que nació, and I can't make out the word. It's probably something like Venaditos. Maybe it's, but same parents around the same time, 10 years earlier. Antonio Salinas and Maria Rufina, which Maria Osornia had like 4 names, and Rufina, she was like Maria Rufina Osornia. This is another sibling, Maria Martina Salinas, was also Native American. It says India right there in shorthand. It was really hard to read this shit, but I was able to do it after squinting for quite a while. So Jose Antonio Salinas and his marriage with Maria Josefa Rufina, right? And where do I get Osornia? Well, her dad's name was Obispo Osornia, so that's why it changes from record to record. You're going to find that with Mexican genealogy. Your ancestors will not use all their names on one record. They will drop names and use it at certain times, and it gets frustrating. That's what makes it pretty challenging as well. But anyways, Jose Antonio Salinas, Indio, and it says right here he was an originator of Venaditos. Bam, Venaditos. He was the legitimate son of Pedro Tomas Salinas, obviously, and Maria Basilia Rivera. Maria Rufina, Josefa Rufina, India, right? She is also an originator of Venaditos, like the blue lines covering that, but I've read this record before. Okay, legitimate daughter of Obispo Osornia and Maria Vicenta Herrera. We'll go further on. This is a brother to Maria Rufina Osornia. This is Crescencio Osornia. It says he's an indio and originario y I can't make out that specifically. All right, so we go to Maria Petra Salinas. In her marriage, she was the sister to Jose Salinas, like we've covered. Daughter of Pedro Tomas Salinas and Maria Basilia Rivera. Maria Petra Gertrude Salinas, India, originario de Venaditos again. Pedro Tomas Salinas in his baptism of 1771. Parents was Victoria Obispo Salinas, right? Even though it's not stated in the record, it's Salinas. You'll find out later. And then Maria San Jose. And Armadillo de Los Infantes again. So it says right here, he's an Indian infant, and lists his parents right there. Doesn't say an originator. Sometimes in these records, they don't lay absolutely everything out like they do in others. They kind of change it. Sometimes, I think sometimes the priests were just freaking lazy, or it was just depending on their freaking mood or something. Maybe they were busy or something. They were in a rush. Here we go. Luisa de Jesus is a sibling to Pedro Tomas Salinas. So India right here, and it shows Josef Obispo Salinas and Maria Josefa. Josef Obispo Salinas. Again, that goes to your ancestors will drop names and not use all their names at one time. So this ancestor is like Jose Victorio Obispo Salinas. He has like 4 freaking names. But it is what it is. So just that makes it a little complicated. But again, you just got to keep your eye out. And if all the facts line out, the time period, the church, location, the wife is the same, all of that, same church, all that stuff, run with it. Again, your ancestors like to drop names. Now, if it's a completely different name, absolutely not. But I'm saying everything isn't going to be perfect when it comes to Mexican genealogy. It seldom is, especially when it comes to the ages of people. Half the time, I don't know what goes on, but people's ages can differ from record to record. Sometimes they remain fairly consistent. Other times they didn't, because people didn't really keep track of that back then. And also people were illiterate, and so they had to rely on the priests. And another thing is this isn't even a really back then type of issue, because I've talked to my mother and my family members, even with their parents' records, my grandparents' records, they made errors with their birth certificates. They would, I know my grandmother's doesn't even have, on her birth certificate, doesn't even have the day. It just says the month, and it's several months after she was born, apparently. But yeah, people, even in recent history, that people didn't really care about that, and they would register people late too, because it costs money to register them. So your ancestors wouldn't do it immediately, maybe several years before they register somebody. So that's when it becomes an issue, because memories are not the best, and you don't even pay attention, because back then, if you're struggling to survive, make money, you're poor, all that, right? Not really going to give a fuck how old your kids are. So I'm just saying, all things to keep into consideration, okay? Now we go to Victorio Salinas and Maria San Josefa when they were married. Now, here they were not listed as natives, okay? They were listed as coyotes. What that means is that they were 3/4 indigenous if we're following the caste system strictly. In my book, they're still indigenous. I mean, in my book, honestly, if you're close to half or over half, you're without question indigenous. If you're lower, I still consider you indigenous, but within reason, can't be too low. But again, that's just my personal opinion, so don't take offense. Anyway, so what makes this funny is the fact that you'll see Victorio Salinas' parents are freaking natives too, so there's no way he's 3/4. But see, the reason people would lie about caste labels is because it was a racial grading system, and the closer to white you were, even by a little bit, the better your chances in the social class. It would elevate you. So coyote was better than indio, right? Because you were at least 25% white, according to the Spaniards. Freaking silly, but it is what it is. So right here, it says Victoria Salinas' parents were Leonardo Salinas and Maria Josefa. Boom. And then Maria San Josefa's parents were Juan Gregorio and Maria del Rosario. So let's see here. I've always struggled trying to read where they say that they're from here. I might have to post the Mexican genealogy. I haven't bothered to do this because, again, like I've had like other stuff that I was more concerned with. But again, Armadillo de Los Infantes is where this took place at. All right, so this is Maria de la Concepcion, and this is a sister to Maria San Josef. So it says right here she was an India, and parents Juan Gregorio, Maria Rosaria. Armadillo de los Infantes, no surprise there. However, here we go. Maria de la Concepcion, this is one of the answers I was talking about that is said to be of Armadillo de los Infantes specifically because she was born of that village specifically. Same thing with this guy, Josef Esteban of 1751. That's going to be a sibling to Maria de San Josef. Same parents. And he was born in that village, specifically Armadillo de los Infantes. Those are my two answers. The rest, like as you can see, they're mainly from Venaditos, and then there were some that I had that were from Mazapil, Zacatecas. All right, this is my best evidence here, so buckle up. So this is for Antonia de Santiago, like I mentioned, parents Leonardo Salinas and Maria Josefa. And this is Armadillo de los Infantes again, 1746. So it says right here that she is an India. However, it doesn't list specifically where. It just says she's basically an originator from, from San Luis Potosi. But it's not really listing a village. So that's where I was like, were they in Armadillo de los Infantes to begin with? Where they were in Mexquitic de Carmona, then they went to Armadillo, then they went to Venaditos, and they kind of moved a little bit, which is totally within reason given the time frame. But I don't know, because this record, again, doesn't really go into specifics of where, the ceremony was just in Armadillo de los Infantes. But they probably either lived there or they were from Venaditos, from what I'm considering the familial history here. Or maybe they were from Mexquitic de Carmona, because again, in 1720, this is where Leonardo Salinas and Maria Josefa are listed as being from. Son's great aunt, Rafaela de los Angeles, this is her baptismal record of 1720. So it says that she is Indian from that specific village right there in Mexquitic de Carmona. Leonardo Salinas and Maria Josefa. And even her padrinos, which is her godparents, everybody's an Indian is what they're saying. Everybody, they all Indian, they all natives. So it's pretty badass. And then here I have a snippet of, again, to support the whole Mexquitic de Carmona things, Guachichil Territory. This is what that native land CA app looks like. You type in, the territory and you search and it'll tell you. So I just had like a screenshot and I put it out and I highlighted what I'm talking about here. So yeah, pretty cool indeed. And then I'll get to the last couple here. This is from Bocas, like I was talking about. Jose Quilino is like, that name kind of changes depending on the record, because again, the priest would hear the names and they weren't, I don't think they cared all the time about this shit. Anyways, he was Indio Catarino Lopez and Maria Merced de Leja were the parents, Bocas. And then here you go to Jose Catarino and Maria, or Merced de Leja again. This is their marriage records. And the priest wrote in shorthand, he put YS. This is short for Indio Soltero or India Soltera, which means single native, basically. It lists their parents too. However, I couldn't find any more records beyond this point, so I'm going to have to work on it. But this was Bocas, San Luis Potosi. Again, here around the lower 1800s. Pretty good evidence. And that's the thing. To even get to these caste labels, I think the oldest I've seen, because they did away with that shit in like 1821. I seen it as far up until like 1840, I think. And some regions did it had already done away with it around that same time, and others were still practicing it. So it's weird. But the sweet spot is getting around 1820. That's where you're going to really see quite a bit of it. And so there's some years of lag before it's completely gone. So it's pretty cool. But see, that's what's crazy. That's why we have so many barriers. Like if you want to, our tribes are lost. You don't know the identity because of the assimilation. And then when you try to do this, like you have to go back about 200 years to even get to a caste label. And then it's like, and then you get to the caste label, and then what if it's not an indio, right? So that's another thing. It's quite a challenge. All right, last two here. Jose Espiridon Tello. He was listed as an indio as well. He just put a Y for shorthand. And they give Ildefonso Tello and Maria Dolores Susteta as the parents. And then here where Maria Dolores Susteta was married with Ildefonso Tello, and lists her as of the quality Native American. So she's Native American. And this is from around 1830. And this is again in Bocas. So quite a bit of connections to indigenous people in Bocas, Mazapil, Armadillo de Los Infantes, Venaditos, Mexquitic de Carmona. I went through my evidence. I talked about some of those sources. I hope that helps. I'm going to link all those sources that I had, and especially that PDF that you can take a look at for the names. If you are a Guachichil and you have good evidence and you want to take that leap because you feel that that's what you are in your heart, and again, you have plenty of proof for that, then go ahead. I encourage you, go into that book and find a name that suits you and adopt it as your Guachichil indigenous name. Again, that honors our ancestors and it keeps it alive. And again, the language is like, there's really not much of it surviving. So the fact that you even claim a name, I think does great honor, right? So thank you for watching, and I will get a genealogy video on how I run things, my ancestors through like Ancestry DNA, Family Search, and how I've been able to get this far back. But thank you for watching.